What is going on, everyone? It's your guy Cole Jackson back here on Road Graders, coming to you with a special episode. We are doing a State of the Ravens episode with our guy from the Athletic, Jeff Zrebiec. Before we bring Jay-Z in here, this video is brought to you by BetUS. Lines for this weekend up, ready to go. The Ravens opening as big favorites. I've never seen in an NFL game, let alone a Ravens game, opening as 15-point favorites, but they have, injuries to oh my God, what's their quarterback? They got DeVito back in playing, so that's really what moved the line significantly. You guys can get in on the action using promo code YouTube150 for 150% sign-up bonus. You'll get 125% on your next two deposits. Go over to BetUS, take advantage of that, and without further ado, let's bring Jay-Z in here. Jay-Z, my guy, how is it going?
Good, man. It's cool. It's holidays coming up and 3 games in I think it's 11 days, and it's going to be fun. I mean, there's a lot to play for. It's all you can ask, and not a ton of storylines this week in this Giants game, but it's a game they have to win, and there will be no shortage of storylines in the couple games that follow that.
No doubt about that. Did you get some rest on the bye week?
Yeah, it was weird. Like, I don't, having a bye week in December, it just kind of felt odd. But I did a lot of family stuff. It was kind of cool, and this is the time, you want to do that around the holidays and stuff. So, we took the kids to a Polar Express thing at one of the train station museums, and a lot of holiday parties with the kids, birthday parties. So it was a good weekend to have off. I mean, my wife didn't take it easy on me, though. I was running around and watching the kids. I didn't even get to see a whole lot of football Sunday. But, yeah, it was a good refresher. It's going to go fast here, man. I mean, when you're talking about 3 games in 11 days, like, the schedule is so condensed, like this week is pretty much a normal week, but, then you get a short week in Pittsburgh coming into town. Then you get an even shorter week heading out to Houston for, Christmas.
It's like the COVID schedule where they got games on Saturdays, games on Wednesdays. It's just weird to look at, but and speaking of family stuff, you grew up in the New York area, so you grew up a Giants fan, eh? So what's give folks a little insight. What are some of your Giants memories?
Yeah, and my I still have a PSL in my name at MetLife Stadium. My family had season tickets. Now I haven't gone to a game as a fan there, and it's at least 5 years, if not more. I've covered a couple there. But yeah, my brother still season tickets, and he sells most of them these days. That is one disgruntled fan base. But yeah, like I'll never forget, I'll be shown how old I am, but one of the things that has kind of stoked my interest in sports writing. My high school was in the state football championship in New Jersey. And I did the whole high school newspaper. I was kind of the sports editor of the high school newspaper. So they played at the Meadowlands, old Giant Stadium, in the state championship. All my friends were there in the crowd, hooting and hollering. My high school, Middletown North, wound up winning the state championship. But I was up in the press box because I was writing a story off the game that was in our school paper. And there was other, high school reporters who were covering the game there. And just being in the Meadowlands press box as a kid, I was a senior in high school, and seeing other people work and just how cool the experience was. And I grew up, as I said, as a Giant fan. So it was a highlight, and I was just like watching other people. I'm like, man, I want to do this for a living, and it's just kind of one of those moments that you have as a young person where it's just like it puts the bug in your head that this is what I want to work towards. And I'll always remember that. But yeah, I mean, I remember vividly all the Giant Super Bowls, 86. I was only 8 years old, but that was an amazing, dominant defensive team there. And the Scott Norwood miss. And, obviously the Patriots 2 games. I actually went to the parade one after.
Oh, no way.
I believe it was the second one against the Patriots. I met up with some buddies and had a few drinks and enjoyed the parade a little bit. Just it was just cool to be in that environment. But yeah, man. I mean, I say it all the time. The fandom in this job gets beaten out of you, right? When you're covering a team, like like I won't be thinking while I'm at the game, wow, I used to like the Giants. I mean, that's so far gone for me. Because I have my own concerns. I don't pay much attention to the Giants until I need to. I don't get to see their games on the weekend. As I said, they haven't given much of a product in years anyway, so I don't really pay much attention to them anymore beyond what I have to and beyond my friends, bitching and moaning about the team. But yeah, it's always cool to be back. I think my brother and a couple of my nephews are going. So I'm hoping to catch up with them in the parking lot before the game. I will not be having any beers because I will be working, but it'll be cool to see them. And as I said, it brings back a lot of memories because that kind of was the organization and the place that kind of stoked my love of football and just made me want to be a reporter.
Love it. That's awesome. And there has been no storylines with the Ravens in the last 7 days, but prior to it got pretty interesting. And one thing, Twitter's an echo chamber, right? Like whatever's going on Twitter might not represent real life. And 13 weeks of football in a row, some tough losses, especially going into the bye week off a loss, even though it was against a team on a hot streak and a playoff caliber, Super Bowl contender in the NFC. And, people are upset, people are frustrated, and, it started to almost feel like the team was going through this frustration. So what can you tell us? Like, is there anything manifesting in that locker room? What's kind of the vibe around the building?
Yeah, I asked John Harbaugh this week that question. Like, is he concerned about the buy-in with the team? And I mean, he clearly didn't like the question based on the reaction, but that's okay. I just thought it probably needed to be asked. Now, Cole, like, there's 3 guys now, right? Like 3 public instances with guys. Now, Marcus Williams, it's just odd to see him on the sideline back in that first Cleveland game. Like, why was he active if he wasn't going to play? Something clearly went on between Marcus Williams and the team after the inactive list came out where they said, you know what? You can sit there, because they wouldn't have made him active if the plan was to bench him all day. So, and we all know Eddie Jackson situation. His frustration was with Zach Orr, and that kind of bubbled over, and he got kept home and ultimately released, and the Deontay Johnson thing became kind of public. These kind of things happen on teams. Believe it or not, I'm not sweeping it under the rug, but usually they stay in house. The Super Bowl team had that mutiny, so to speak. So this stuff happens where guys aren't happy with their playing time. Guys aren't happy with their roles. There's locker room disputes. People are pissed off, so, but for have a team that, a winning team, a winning veteran team, that's played pretty good football for a good amount of the season so far, to have 3 instances, I thought was notable. I thought needed to be asked about. So, I get the vibe. Here's the thing, like, they've fallen short in some of these years in recent years, Cole, but they've never really underachieved in the regular season, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, or not in a while, as I say. Like,
2 bye weeks in the last 6 years. Like, you can't really complain about the regular season.
Yeah, exactly. So this is the first time where it feels like they've underachieved a little in the regular season, and I say that they have played a really tough schedule. I mean, I looked at it, like, there's a good chance that every projected AFC playoff team they'll have played, right? Yeah. I mean, they've already played the Chiefs. They've already played the Bills. They will play the Texans in a couple weeks. Steelers. They've obviously played the Steelers. They've played the Broncos. They played the Chargers. So they pretty much played everybody. They played the Eagles. They've played on short rest. They've had some tough road trips. So yeah, they've been put through the ringer a little bit. So 8-5 in that stretch. I don't. It's not a disappointment, I wouldn't say. But they've also been very healthy. So, I think you want to take advantage of that. They've had probably the best offense they've ever had. So you'd hope you'd have more than 8 wins, but that's not where they're at. So I think there's some frustration a little bit with that. But I'd be lying to you, Cole, if I noticed like a divided locker room. Like really do think these are isolated incidents. I don't think Eddie Jackson really bought into this from the day one, and here's a veteran guy who started games and he's kind of coming off the bench, and the guy in front of him is struggling, so he's wondering, why am I not playing? And he didn't play well and kind of caught the ire of fans. That went downhill. And Deontay Johnson has now done this in 3 places, and I'm not excusing him. I think the Ravens should have gotten him more involved, but we all know the Ravens have struggled to get wide receivers involved, for myriad reasons, and it just wasn't happening with him. And the few opportunities they got, I thought they tried to force it to him early in Pittsburgh, and it cost them a Zay Flowers walk-in touchdown on the one. They clearly wanted to get him going, and it wasn't working out. And he sort of has this reputation. He's on his contract year, and if anything, the trade didn't bother me at all. In fact, I thought it was a good move. If there was a misstep, it was thinking he would be willing to accept in a contract year, such a secondary role, and thinking he was going to be willing to be patient, because I do think there would have been opportunities for him eventually. So, so I don't, I think this team looks good after the bye, Cole. Lamar is very energized. You could tell in practice. The injury report is looking really good at the moment. I'm sure everyone wants me to knock on wood. They're sticking up publicly for Deontay Johnson. Zay Flowers did. Bateman said the right things. Lamar said the right things. But we'll see about that. I'm assuming that some of the stuff saying behind the scenes is probably different, and we'll see on Monday when he's eligible to be back. Do the team want him back? I'm sure that's a conversation Harbaugh will have with the leadership committee. I'm sure DaCosta will be involved, but that decision still has to be made. Can you after what's gone on? Are there going to be guys in the locker room who want nothing to do with him? I mean, this was something that several players knew about while it was going on during the Eagles game. This wasn't something they read about. They knew what was going on because people wanted him to go in the game. So can they forgive him? Is he contrite? I think so much goes into that decision. So we'll see where that is. If he's played his last snap of a Raven, it wouldn't surprise me, but I think they're taking the necessary time to evaluate. And, a lot of it depends on him too. As I said, how contrite is he? How willing is he going to be? Because he's not a top option on this team. And maybe he should be, but we all knew it takes a while to get on that same page with Lamar, and they're playing good football. They're rolling. These games are so important, and it's tough to integrate guys at this point in the season when every snap and every play could be so critical.
Yeah, and one of the other things that, and I mean, John Harbaugh just seems short lately with some of his media responses. And there was another one that he was asked about where I don't know if he was necessarily short, but he was direct and to the point. And that was, and I mean, what I focus on when I watch this team is the offensive line and my frustration with the guard play. And the question was put to him, will there be changes after that Eagles game where the interior defensive line, the 4-man rotation of defensive tackles combined for 22 pressures. And so, John Harbaugh said we're not going to be seeing those changes. So, I mean, I'm not expecting a new offensive line this week, that's for sure. But, how short of a leash do you think is on guys like Patrick McCary and Daniel Falele? And is there any chance we're going to see Andrew Voorhees again, or the often discussed Ben Cleveland?
Yeah. And I asked that question to Harbaugh on the Monday after the Eagles game, just because, I figured the bye week's the time to evaluate everything.
That's right, yeah.
And we've all seen in past years, and part of it is to get veteran players to the finish line, but we've all seen them go to rotations and give guys a look and see, they often talk about getting some fresh legs in there, a fresh body in there during a time where there's a lot of tired and banged up players. We're only allowed to watch so much of practice. So to talk, they were indoors today because it was pouring raining, and there's been no indication that there will be changes, but again, they wouldn't put that in front of the media anyway, right? But yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, I'm a little surprised that Voorhees has completely vanished. The Ben Cleveland thing doesn't surprise me because, as we've said since the summer, they do not view him as the fans view him, as some of the other. Like you and I have talked about this many times. I would have started him.
I think I stopped talking to you about it.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like I think we both agree. I mean, I think. I thought his floor was the highest of the competitors for that job. I mean, maybe his ceiling was the lowest, but I thought you were going to get competent play. But they clearly think differently, and they clearly don't view him. I know like people point his Pro Football Focus grades when he's played, but in their grading, he is not graded out very highly. So this is what they've decided to do, but Voorhees is a guy I know they really liked. I know they were a little disappointed with him, how he played those first couple games. He didn't play very well, but I think he was a rookie, who,
look at Rosengarten in the last 3 weeks going into the bye. He struggled, and then in the last 3 weeks going into the bye, 2 pressures in 3 games. Like just a guy that has. I mean, they're giving him help and all that good stuff, but you can really see with these young kids, like they need the reps, and that's always been kind of my thing. Yeah. And like I know he's coming back from injury and that sort of stuff, but it's just tough. Yeah. It's tough to not see him kind of get some of those reps.
Yeah, and you know what I mean? They're very defensive. I mean, and I about like the play of the offensive line, and it's not just John; it's other people in the building. I mean, I think this Sunday. We'll see if they do what they're supposed to do. They get a nice lead against the Giants. Maybe they're able to rotate some guys in. I mean, any snaps that starters get off their feet in this stretch of 3 games in 11 days, particularly on that bad MetLife surface they're going to be playing on, would be a godsend. So maybe they work guys in a little bit to keep them fresh a little, especially during this 3 games in 11-day stretch. I'm surprised. I am surprised. I'm surprised we haven't seen, 40s get back in there, even if it's on a rotation basis for a couple games. Even like when they've had opportunities to put an extra offensive lineman without Kohler in there, we're seeing Josh Jones, not one of the young guys. So, I'm curious to see if there's any changes there, Cole. John Harbaugh's not going to announce changes to the media. Like he doesn't play like that, but it is certainly worth watching every time they get into the huddle Sunday. Is there going to be a new guy in there? Are they going to rotate a little? Are they going to try to, we'll see. I think it's certainly an area where it stands to reason that they could use to, try some things, give some different guys an opportunity to see if they can seize it.
Makes sense. And, one guy that's, kind of the quietest superstar, we'll call him, and Mark Andrews, he went through some early season struggles in terms of production. And that was, the car accident, the knee injury. Yeah. Knee injury that happened actually before the car accident.
Quad. Yeah. I think it was lower leg quad. Yeah.
So like just, a rough start to the season, but a guy that in the last few weeks has really come back into, the player that we know Mark Andrews can be. And so we know he's all business. Is that kind of what you've seen from him this year and just how he's worked himself back into form? And can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, and look, he could break a record Sunday, right? Most touchdowns, and that's an unbelievable. This was a 3rd-round pick, Cole, and I'll never forget his rookie year, which was 2018, right? Because he was in Lamar's class.
Yep.
We were all writing halfway through training that this guy's not going to be able to help him. Like this guy could be a stash guy his rookie year. Like we were watching him and he wasn't moving real well. Remember, he had some injury questions in the draft and he missed some time that first training camp.
Yep.
And we're like, they're going to stash this guy. I mean, they had Hayden Hurst. They had a couple veterans around. And for him to be the star that he became and one of their better offensive players that they've ever drafted and developed is incredible. The record would be the cherry on top. But, I'm actually working on a Mark Andrews story. I'm supposed to sit down with him and chat with him later this week. Just about I think people were giving up on him earlier this season. I don't want to, do too much inside journalism stuff, but we have meetings with my editor and like first couple of weeks, my editor is like, yeah, fantasy people are all talking about Mark Andrews. Is he done? And I'll like, let's let's just wait a second here, guys. I mean, he had a really tumultuous offseason. He missed some time. They're still trying to define who they are as an offense. I think Lamar was very intent on trying to get some of the guys involved, get Bateman established, get Likely involved a little more. Chiefs came out right away to take Mark Andrews away in week 1. But this guy is, you know, first of all, he's like the ultimate pro. And you know, Kyle Hamilton spoke at length about Mark Andrews. Like he was talking about how he sits next to Mark Andrews in meetings and watches the notes he takes and watches what he does. And like, I think the exact, you know, basically summing up the quote is basically like everything he does has a purpose, and that's being ready for the game on, you know, Saturday, Sunday, Thursday, whatever they play. He's such a pro. He is so intense. Like, look, if you need to interview Mark Andrews, you better do it during early in the week, because it gets later in the week, he's tunnel vision. He's intense. He doesn't want it to, you know, he's always respectful. He's always accountable, but he has no interest in the chit chat as the week gets later. He's like so intense and fiery, holds himself accountable. Yeah, he's, you know, he's been a star, man. And, you know, there's a lot of people who are suggesting they trade him or he's done, who, you know, I probably should eat a little crow, because, you know, we saw how much trust Lamar has in him on how many occasions this year. There was the one ball where they kind of played street ball against the Bengals, where he kind of broke out a route and he hit him for touchdown. And you saw that play against the Eagles. I don't think he's throwing
pass
that.
into quad coverage.
Yeah, he's not throwing that to any other receiver but Mark Andrews.
Yeah, no, for sure. Well, when you sit down with him, make sure you tell him that he's a lookalike of a Canadian hack YouTuber.
Yeah, he's I mean, there's not a lot. It's all ball with him. He does not tolerate a whole lot of nonsense, and I think you got to respect that. He's a throwback who would fit with any Ravens team that they've ever had.
And one guy we got to talk about that will tolerate some nonsense is our guy Todd Monken. Now, we all know he's been having fun with the fans, and I love it. And I have to go back. We talked about this when he had this quote. So when he was asked about the playbook in his pants, he said it's only fun right now because they're winning. And like how bang on, as soon as the offense started to kind of hit some of those speed bumps, it all goes away, and now it's get Todd Monken out of here, and what's Monken doing? And so, you know, but taking a look at Todd Monken, he's obviously been great for this organization. His offense has been a really good fit for Derrick Henry, for one. You know, that zone scheme that he ran at Georgia, he ran, you know, when he was with Tampa and Cleveland. It's been a really good fit for getting this run game very established with a Derrick Henry. But it's also been great for Lamar Jackson and pushing this ball downfield to his receivers specifically. And, you know, the league is noticed. So, you know, how do you think essentially is him leaving as a head coach, is that looking probable, or, you know, what's kind of your view of that situation?
That's a good question. I think he's going to get some interviews. I'd be surprised if he didn't. Probable. I'm not ready to say that yet. I mean, you look at it and you look at his age, and he's never been an NFL head coach, right? And, you know, some teams want to go the young, kind of corporate looking route and not get a guy who's been in a lot of places and is not particularly young in terms of a coaching standpoint. But I would think he'd get some interviews. I know people, there's high opinions of him around the league. There's a lot of people that like him. He was up for the Jets head coaching job at one point years ago, and he left a huge impression. They were very impressed with him. In fact, he was quietly one of the finalists. And that was before, you know, he Georgia national championship stuff, where his stock really went on the rise. You know, it always depends. There's a lot of variables, you know, or what are teams looking for? Is it an offensive guy? Is it a defensive guy? What's important? But that dude is a character, like, and he can talk. So he's going to get in front of owners, and he's charismatic. He's funny. He's the kind of guy you want to have a beer with, you know.
He's going to show up to the interview with the playbook in his pants.
Yeah, it'd just be hilarious, and just make comments and drop F-bombs every other word. He's just not like, you know, he's a football coach. He's an old school football coach from a football family. his family, he's from Illinois, and his dad is his high school stadium named after him. His dad unfortunately passed away not very long ago. It's been kind of a trying year on that front in a lot of ways for the Ravens. But I was thinking, hey, Caleb Williams, Bears are going to need a head coach. Monken's got a good profile in Illinois and family there. I would be surprised if he didn't get some interviews, and then you never know what happens from there. But man, that guy having 3 or 4 press conferences a week and having to talk to media after a bad loss, that would be interesting because he could fly off the handle a little bit, and his language is kind of, I think we're getting cheated of him not being shown in Hard Knocks yet, because I had imagined, I wrote this at the time, but last year when Andrew Voorhees was hurt, they had Andrew Voorhees count how many F-bombs like Monken was dropping during the meetings. And then it just got to the point where, and this was Zeitler and Moses, and they're encouraging. And it got to the point where there's so many that just forget it. He's a character, man. And, for him to be a head coach and, have to meet the media regularly, that would be interesting. But I think some owners are really going to like him. He's a very smart guy. As I said, charismatic. Players seem to like him, and he can help. He really can help young quarterbacks, and that's kind of what people are looking for more than anything. Who's going to help take my young quarterback to the next level?
Yeah, and that downfield air raid system might fit really well with Caleb Williams. So I never really thought about that fit, but you're right on that. And, taking a look at the other coordinators. So, I mean, the defensive turnaround has been great. And our friend Michael Crawford pointed something out that was really interesting to me. So if you look at the first 10 weeks, they were second in the NFL in explosive pass plays allowed. But in the last 3 weeks going into the bye, they were first in the least explosive plays allowed. So like that shift. And so we've seen a few changes. We saw obviously the safeties change. You saw Marcus Williams leave. You saw Kyle Hamilton playing a little bit deeper. You saw Darius Washington come in. You saw Trey White come in. So like the personnel has shifted, and we heard Marlon Humphrey also be pretty accountable in terms of saying a lot of this is player execution. But also within this, we have seen Dean Pease enter, and based on what I used to see when I'd watch Dean Pease defenses, some of those soft cover 2 looks and, giving up those check downs, like that's what this defense has started to look like. So if you have to look at it, what do you think is making the biggest impact? Is it the personnel change? Is it guys just finally getting into executing Zach Orr's defense, or, is Dean Pease playing a really big role in kind of this defensive structure turnaround?
Yeah, and I'll credit you, Cole, because I've seen you write it and talk about it a little, like Dean Pease's impact and kind of the bend that don't break. And Kyle Hamilton talked about that today. And first of all, like I'm going on a little tangent here, but that dude is as good of an interview as any football player I've ever covered. I mean, This dude is just off the charts impressive. He answers questions, he gives out information, not that hurts them, strategically, but he's as polished an interview as you could actually find. I mean, what a stud. But he admitted they've been playing a little soft because they're trying to get in the back end in order. Like he said it. He's like, our priority was taking away that stuff. Now we feel like we got that stuff in order. Now it's time we be more aggressive. And I thought of you because you've been talking about that, right? And I think it was a clear priority is, look, we can't fix this all at once. We're going to make changes. We're going to make the personnel changes. We're not going to completely change philosophies because this is the Ravens defense after all. It's not Zach Orr's defense or Dean Pease's defense. This is the Ravens defense. This was, this is how John Harbaugh wants it to be played and all that. So, but they're, that doesn't mean they haven't changed focus a little. And I just think with how like the Bengals game was sort of one of the come to Jesus moments, like, look, this is embarrassing. Like, it's going to be baby steps. There's going to be a 32 next door name defensively for a couple weeks. You can't erase that in 1 week. So let's just start taking away, like, let's limit the big plays. Let's make teams earn it. And I think we've seen that, right? And, some of it's probably the competition they played, Eagles are, obviously a lot of run heavy and the Steelers and all that. But, they've done a really nice job of eliminating that and taking away the big play. And, I think it's kind of all the above. I think the communication with Kyle Hamilton back, I think he's taken over to be the lead communicator of that group. And I think everyone knows where he's going to be. He plays it sound. And our Darius Washington's just one of those solid players. I think you still worry about our Darius Washington as a tackler and in the middle of the field. And it's going to be tough in jump ball situations, but he's just a guy that's, in the right place at the right time and plays really sound defensively, competes his ass off too. And I think that's helped a little bit, having Humphrey healthier, having Wiggins healthier. So all the above, but I think the philosophy of, focusing on this and focusing on communicating and stop giving up so many gimmies, taking that stuff away. And that's they feel like they're doing that. They feel like they're at a point now where, okay, we knocked that stuff out. Now it's time to get a little more aggressive, and we'll see. I think, I don't know how much we're going to learn this Sunday. I'm never a guy that says, the Giants, they're walk all over. This will be a 50-point game. But I do think, I have read some people say, oh, they need to make a statement. Like, there's no statement they can make this week. Like,
No.
they could beat the Giants 41-0. And there's not a single person out there who's Super Bowl, whose opinions on the Ravens Super Bowl viability is going to change. It's just not happening. Like, the Giants have been that bad. So,
yeah,
but
for me, this is like a confidence builder. Like, it's like when Alabama plays, a Div 2 school in week 1 of the college, it's just kind of a tune-up for a run. But, it's one of those games where I think you're expecting that. So if they go out and do it, it's okay. You did what I expected.
Yeah, good.
And I mean, underwhelmed. There's no overwhelmed.
Yeah, exactly. And I said the bad MetLife story. You just want to get out of the game healthy.
That's
and
true.
You want to have a W, and you want to get
underrated storyline.
Exactly.
Because we lost someone last time we played at MetLife, didn't we? There was
there was that one year.
Was it Dobbins? It was Dobbins against the Jets.
Dobbins. Yeah, it was Dobbins. I mean, every year, so then there was that year where didn't they have 2 torn Achilles in the same game? Wasn't it Fuller and Juwan James in the opener against the Jets that year?
Fuller, yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
and Juwan James.
Jesus. Yeah, Juwan James. Yeah, and didn't he start that game? So
I was so excited about Juwan James.
I know. So anyway, you just want to get the win. They have a lot ahead of them, and then move on. But yeah, you want to play well, but I think defensively, they're starting to get that groove back a little. I think they're all on the same page. I don't think they were on the same page earlier. I think, I don't know what it was. I don't know whether it was different agendas, but they kept saying it's like one guy on each play is just not doing their job correctly. So I think they feel like a lot of that's gotten cleaned up. Now we'll see. And I am also curious to see if they do anything different defensively. Like, how is Roquan, say this continues with Chris Board cutting into Trenton Simpson snaps? Like, has Roquan Smith played? I thought Roquan looked pretty good against the Eagles by and large,
Yeah.
So is this playing next to a veteran that is I don't know, like Trenton Simpson's a kid, like plays fast, but he's not always right place at the right time. And I think Roquan was getting hung out to dry a little bit and trying to do too much. And that was a little bit of his issues. Knowing where Board's going to be, maybe he's limited in some ways, but I think he understands. So maybe that frees up Roquan even more.
Kind of like CJ Mosley with Darryl Smith that year when they brought him in to kind of be that stable vet.
Yeah, totally. So, we'll see, but I think the signs are good on defense. And, the jury's going to still be out defensively until they play a really good offense in a big spot, and we'll see how they do. But, look, this is always going to take some time for Zach Orr. This was always going to, and it took some time for Mike McDonald too. I know people were hearing that. So, the progress is being made. They just have to sustain it.
And the last guy I want to get your thoughts on before we get out of here is a guy that I've obviously followed him for years because he's Canadian, but Tavius Robinson, a guy that has earned a lot playing time over, the course of the year, and a guy that's your typical Raven that's, a Ravens edge or a Ravens D lineman that just does all the little things right, plays the run well. And now has gotten a little bit of pass rush chops going, and that's kind of always been what we expected with his game. He'd kind of come in, be that edge setter, and then try and develop a pass rush game to try and be like a Jarrett Johnson, that type of guy. And so, we've seen Tavius Robinson on the field, but can you give us a little insight on, his presence in the locker room, on the practice field, the type of guy he is? Can you give us a little bit of insight on that?
Yeah, he's a really well-liked kid. I think he's one of these guys that's a real favorite of the personnel department. Because they spotted him and they like the fit. They like the kid, kind of a magnetic personality, always smiling, will do whatever he's asked. I mean, this is a guy, Cole, who, when you watch the special teams portion of practice, he's always on the scout team. This is a guy that's playing major snaps defensively. Like, look at his snaps in some weeks. And he's on the scout team with a penny on, covering punts on the scout team. Like, he's out there, man. He wants to play. He'll do whatever he's asked. He's a hardworking kid. I think he's going to get more and more confident with the increased playing time. But they're really happy about how he's coming along. I mean, he's been a nice, everyone wants the 10 sack pass rusher, like everyone wants, but to get a 4th round pick who becomes a key member of the rotation, can set the edge against the run, can help out in different ways. I mean, maybe has 5-6 sacks a year upside. Who knows? I don't want to sell him short. Who knows what he's going to be? But, I think that's what you look for on those day 3 draft picks. Culture guys that are going to come in and do what's asked of them and just be solid players for you. And we've seen countless, versions of that over the years in Baltimore. But, he seems to be a guy that's one of the next ones. He's taken a step forward this year. There's no doubt about that. He's become definitely a steady contributor.
We love it. And we love a Canadian balling out down there. It's always good. So that's all we have for you guys. Big thanks to Jay-Z. You guys know where you can find Jay-Z at Jeff Zrebiec on Twitter. And obviously at The Athletic. So Jay-Z, thanks so much for joining us. Enjoy your trip to New York. I hope you get to catch up with some family and friends before, sorry to your family, but I hope we get a belt to ass game, and I hope the Ravens go out there and whoop it.
Cole, they do too. They want that number 1 overall pick, and
tank season,
and they can smell it. 4 games away, and but wouldn't it be typical? I predicted long term. What's going to happen is they're going to win the next, or they're going to lose 3. Then they're going to play the Eagles. And the Eagles are going to have they're going to already be set in their playoff position. The Eagles are going to bench every starter and run out Kenny Pickett. And the Giants are going to win in week 18 and cost themselves the first overall pick. That would be vintage Giants. That's what I'm predicting. But yeah, they're looking for that number 1. I don't even know who the number 1 overall pick is. I don't think anyone does at this point, but they don't care. Just the thought of having that pick and getting a new quarterback in there is exciting.
Sort of QB.
Yeah. But anyway, man, I appreciate it. Always enjoy catching up. I'm sure we'll do it again soon. It's going to be, Ravens are looking at this as an 8-game season, right? So I think they've been good in the bye. After the bye in the past, I think things set. Obviously, schedule's daunting with the games in certain amount, but they're in a good spot. That they just have to win. Just like it's easy to say. Like, no one wants to hear Justin Tucker talk anymore. Like, all respect to him, he's not looking to talk as people are approaching him. But there's nothing anymore. Harbaugh, Tucker, Lamar, nothing these guys could say. They just need to go out and win games.
Okay.
You get to that 12 win mark. There's a good shot at the division, or you're going to be in that number 5 seed and get probably a shot at Houston the first round, and go win games on the road. They've done it before in the playoffs, and if they have to do it again, they'll be battle tested because they played everybody. Pretty much every good team in the league, except maybe Detroit this year. So they're in a good spot if they're able to kind of get going here, stay healthy, and put themselves in a nice position.
Love it. And we're ready for another December run. So big thanks to Jay-Z for joining us, and I hope you guys enjoyed this. Be good to yourselves, be good to each other. Peace out.